Hello, everyone. Welcome to Art Isn't Easy. And I'm going to tell you right now that title is very apt because I kid you not, I have recorded this intro no less than 30 times. I'm just going to get going with this. Anywho, welcome. I do want to sincerely say I appreciate everyone watching this because this is my first video. And a little bit about me. I am very into film. Film will be the primary focus of this channel. I will talk about TV and theater in addition to that from time to time. I do have a pretty big history with theater. I have acted in it quite a bit. But as of late, I have not because the acting industry is hard and New York is expensive and I need a steady paycheck to pay my rent. So I sold my soul to corporate America and I feel like Bart Simpson and my job is Milhouse Van Houten. For my first video today, I decided I'm going to go through my physical media collection because I just started rebuilding it. So I actually had about 350 DVDs back in the day. I am no longer in possession of those, unfortunately. But I was like, you know what? I want to rebuild this. So Criterion came a calling, and I spent way too much money. But we are going to go through the collection that I have built right here. So, to give you an idea of what we're going to be looking at, we have 41 films, two trilogies, a mini series, and a big collection of one filmmaker's work. And we'll let the people that know Criterion guess which one that is, but we'll save that for last. So, we are going to go through these. I just kind of want to talk a little bit about them, but also what they mean to me personally. I do like watching videos like this from other film people on YouTube. So I wanted to do that for myself. I thought it was a good place to start for a first video. So we are going to go in order of the spine number of which they were released by Criterion. First up, at number 5, we have Francois Truffaut's The 400 Blows. This is one of my all-time favorites, which is kind of a redundant phrase because I bought all these films for a reason. But this one is great. Just to give you a little bit of a description on the back if you're not familiar, Francois Truffaut's first feature is also his most personal, told from the point of view of Truffaut's cinematic counterpart, Antoine Denel, who's played by Jean-Pierre Léaud. The 400 Blows sensitively recreates the trials of Truffaut's own childhood. So you could say it's a coming-of-age film, and Truffaut would go on to make a few more films with Léaud as Antoine, which are all pretty good. This is easily still his best, in my opinion. I really love it. I think everyone should check this one out. Next up, at number 13, we have a very obscure film, Jonathan Demme's The Silence of the Lambs. So, this one I feel like is one of those films that most people have seen. I will admit there are some problematic elements to it now, but it is a very well made thriller, and it still remains to this day the closest thing to a horror film to have won Best Picture, which I do find that kind of stuff fascinating. It does impress me that a film like this broke through in the way that it did, but I'm glad it did. Very strong film. But next up, at number 30, we have Fritz Lang's M, which I remember when I first heard about this film. Back in the 90s, Microsoft used to release these CD-ROMs, Microsoft Cinemania. It was sort of like a Wikipedia for films before that even existed because the internet was still very new at that time. But I remember reading a plot description for this and being like, wow, a film about a serial killer who targets young children made in 1931. It just doesn't seem like something that would be made at that time. But it's a very effective film, and I do love it very much. It's Peter Lorre is very effective in this as Hans, the serial killer. And then next up, we have at 97, Spike Lee's Do the Right Thing. I think this film needs to be seen by everyone. And I think it's also just very fascinating because it's very timely still to this day. Because one of the major plot points of this is police brutality and just race relations in general. And it has a lot to say. I feel like it's also very appropriate because it's set in summertime in Bed-Stuy, back before Bed-Stuy became a little more gentrified. But also it really captures just how disgusting it gets here in the summer because New York in the summer is overrated. I'm sorry. There's a reason that autumn was written about in the song for New York. Autumn in New York and Christmas. aside from the tourists, because the tourists will not go into that. That's way off topic. Do the right thing. So, Spike Lee, I do love his voice as a filmmaker. I do think he's a very interesting figure because in recent years, he's said some things that do veer more towards pro police, which is very interesting considering what happens in this movie. But regardless, it's a masterpiece. It should be seen by everyone. But next up, we have what I think is one of the most beautiful films ever made. This is Spine number 147, and that is Wong Kar Wai's In the Mood for Love. So this one is set in 1962 Hong Kong, and it stars Maggie Cheung and Tony Leung. They are living in like an apartment complex, but their respective spouses start having an affair with each other, which leaves the two of them to ponder, I wonder if we should do the deed ourselves. So therefore, will they or won't they? Who knows? Well, I know because I've seen the movie, but I adore this movie. This one is fantastic. It's so beautiful. And speaking of beautiful, we're also diving into Asian cinema once again with this one. Number 217, Yasujiro Ozu's Tokyo Story. I would say this is his magnum opus. It's kind of hard to say because he did make so many great films. What I love about Ozu is that if you watch his films, they seem very archaic in a lot of ways because the way he frames his shots, they're very static. Oftentimes his actors are staring down the barrel of the camera. But in a way, it works for me, and it obviously works for a lot of people considering the legend that he is. But it's because he's very good at just tapping into real human emotion. His films just feel so honest. And this one is just so bittersweet. It's this elderly couple traveling to Tokyo from northern Japan, and they're visiting their children and their spouses, but they don't seem to have any time for them. But they visit their daughter in law because their son that married her had died during World War II. It might not be for everyone, but I do think it's a very beautiful film. Next up is a film that I don't really see talked about much, but I really love this one. So it's Spine number 330, and it's Louis Malle's Au revoir l'enfant. Now, this one is considered to be semi-autobiographical to Malle. It's about two boys who become friends in a French boarding school during the period when it was occupied by Nazis. And let's all take a moment to punch a Nazi in the face. There's not really a Nazi over here. I mean, if they were, I would have gladly thrown them out of my apartment, but anyways. So, this is a very beautiful film. Louis Malle is a great filmmaker, and I want to get a few more works by his over time. But this is one that I found very lovely. I revisited it during COVID because I rewatched a lot of films while I was on quarantine, as I'm sure a lot of you that might be in the film did. But I do really love this one. I can't wait to check it out again. Next, quite an epic if you ask me, especially based on running time. But Spine 339, Edward Yang's Yi Yi. Edward Yang, this was his last film. He sadly passed away from cancer about 7 years after this came out in 2000. It's basically, I don't want to say it's a coming of age film. We follow a middle class family in Taipei. The film begins with a wedding and ends with a funeral. It's a very beautiful film. I feel like I'm not saying anything like directly personal about it, but I do miss Edward Yang's voice. I do wish we could have gotten more films from him, and we will be seeing him again soon enough in this video. But Yi Yi, one of the best films of the last like 30 years or so. And also, we have another all time banger right here. Quite the favorite for all the film bros. Yeah, that's me being a bro. But, okay. So, Spy number 381, La Haine. So, this is by Matthew Kassovitz, and it stars a fairly young Vincent Cassel. This one is about three guys who live in the Paris suburbs, but it's very the rough ghetto suburbs. Like when you think of Paris, you think of like ho ho, like the Eiffel Tower, and going to the Louvre and having a croissant. This is not that. But this film is so fantastic. And it also deals with police brutality again. and it's very relevant these days. I actually have not watched it in a while. I've seen it a couple of times, but I really love this one and I was eager to purchase it. Now for one of the most beautiful films ever made, Spine Number 409, Terrence Malick's Days of Heaven. Terrence Malick is such an interesting filmmaker because he's very reclusive. He doesn't really do interviews. And he made two films in the 70s. And then he was like, you know what? I'm not going to make another film for 20 years. I'm just going to kick back, become reclusive, and have people wonder what the hell happened to me. And then he comes back with a Thin Red Line. But Days of Heaven is a very beautiful film. It's shot gorgeously by Nestor Almendros, and it stars Richard Gere and Brooke Adams as a couple who pose as siblings so that she can basically make the farmer they're working for fall in love with her. And then he has a terminal illness and he's on the verge of death. So the goal is she'll take the wealth, they can move into the house, and therefore they'll live happily ever after. But guess who takes forever to die? Well, yes, Days of Heaven. So next up, we have one of my absolute all time favorites, and it's been looming over us in the background all this time. Spine Number 501, Wim Wenders' Paris, Texas. I have to say, if there was ever a film that truly put me in a trance as I watched it, it was this one. And frankly, one of the major examples of that is the scene depicted in this poster back here. Nastasia Kinski is positively alluring in this. It's almost like ASMR before I even knew what the hell that was. Like her voice, the way she acts, like everything about this film, because you have Harry Dean Stanton as a man who had amnesia. He basically walks out on his wife and young son. She ends up at a peep show, which is where this scene takes place. It's such a beautiful film. It's shot so gorgeously. The Ry Cooder music also is very fitting. It's like it's interesting. It's like it's a very American film, but it's shot by a bunch of Europeans. So it's like a very American film with European sensibilities. What's not to love? I do love it very much. Next up, we have Spine Number 543, Modern Times, Charlie Chaplin. So, Charlie Chaplin is interesting. There have been stories about him having groomer tendencies, which the whole separate the art from the artist thing. It's hard to do. But Chaplin was a genius because he was great at capturing pathos. He had such humor and wit, but also the bittersweet drama. He always captured it so well. But I have more Chaplin titles in here, so I'm not going to say much about this one. But I do really love it. He does work with his then wife Paulette Goddard in this, which their relationship, read up on that. But yes, Modern Times, great film. We'll talk more about Chaplin in a moment. But next up, we have 549, Peter Bogdanovich's The Last Picture Show. Very stunning film, shot in black and white, right in the early days of New Hollywood. I'd argue that Peter Bogdanovich did not sustain a career in the same way that his contemporaries did, but this is quite the masterpiece. The acting in this, I mean, and you also have a lot of newcomers at the time. Like Jeff Bridges was not really known. He's in this. Sybil Shepherd, Timothy Bottoms. You have Ellen Burstyn, Eileen Brennan, Cloris Leachman, who at the time was starring on the Mary Tyler Moore Show. She has a role in this. She won the Oscar. And she has this great final scene where she lashes out at Timothy Bottoms. I won't say more if you haven't seen it, but if you've seen it, you know it's a fantastic scene, like the definition of what an Oscar clip would be. And also, the great Ben Johnson also won an Oscar for this, and he is phenomenal in a small role. The Last Picture Show, truly a masterpiece. And we're already back at Chaplin again with Spine Number 565, The Great Dictator, which, by golly, how relevant that feels right now. But this is Chaplin. The Great Dictator is a very beautiful film. He even said that if he had known how bad World War II with Hitler would have gotten, he never would have made this. I get where he's coming from, but This is a fantastic film. It's one of his masterpieces. I actually haven't watched it in a while, so I'm really looking forward to getting into this one again. Next up, we have one of the trilogies. I'm a very big fan of Krzysztof Kieslowski. He passed away in 1996, so 30 years ago this year. And his last magnum opus was a trilogy that's based around the colors of the French revolutionary ideals. And that is Blue, White, Red, the Three Colors trilogy. I am also someone who would agree that white is not normally considered the best. I've only seen it once. I'm actually looking forward to giving it a try again. But I very much love blue and red. And for the longest time, I used to say blue was my favorite. Then I was like, maybe red. I will say I did revisit blue after I bought this. So fantastic. Juliette Binoche is phenomenal. And her, I mean, she basically is a woman grieving the death of her husband and daughter. And it's a great portrayal of grief on screen because it's all very internal. It's not an explosive performance, it's very much muted, and you can see a lot of it in her eyes. Phenomenal work, phenomenal trilogy. I adored Kieslowski's work, and we're going to see more of him in a moment, too. Next up is a very big film for me in terms of what got me very interested in film at a young age. We have Spine 611, Spike Jonze's Being John Malkovich. The mind of Charlie Kaufman. What a beautiful, bizarre thing. It's, how do you describe this film? It's like, oh, I'm going to crawl through this portal that I found in an office that's literally half a floor, and it leads me into the mind of great character actor John Malkovich. And after that time is up, you're spat out onto the New Jersey Turnpike. Like how, and it works beautifully. I just revisited this film last year for the first time in like over a decade, and it still holds up. I really love this film very much. God, we're not escaping Chaplin apparently. Spine number 680, arguably his magnum opus, City Lights. So City Lights is interesting because it came out in 1931, and this was at a period when Hollywood was looking down on silent films as being inferior. So basically, you would watch this film and be like,
Oh God, it's silent. Who the hell wants to watch silence? Like, God, like, what the hell is this? Like, this is archaic. This is just disgusting. But oh my God, what are we going to vote for the Oscar this year?
Cimarron.
Oh, yes, that film with the very offensive racial stereotypes. That was brilliant because there was sound.
City Lights. This, I just rewatched this with my husband Jesse the other day. It still holds up really well. Such a beautiful ending too. Possibly one of the most beautiful endings to a film ever. It's just so simple because Chaplin captures the pathos so well. So, City Lights, love it. Next up, we have Spine number 682, which is a film that I don't really hear talked about much often either, and that it's an Italian film, Investigation of a Citizen Above Suspicion. This one's about an Italian commandant. He just got the job, and he's now taking care of a case. He's trying to solve a grisly murder, but here's the twist. He did it himself. It's very Kafkaesque too. There's a lot of Kafka influences in this. It's a very weird, trippy film. It actually did win the Oscar for Best Foreign Language Film at the time, which I'm glad it did. It's a fantastic film. I wish more people would check it out. But next up, we have a film that was very pivotal for me in my young age. Spine number 694, Terence Davies' The Long Day Closes. I was a very shy kid. I was very awkward. I had a lot of like artistic interests. It was hard for me to express myself. I saw a lot of myself in the character of Bud in this film. And when I first saw it, I cried because, honest to God, I had a strong attachment to the song Tammy by Debbie Reynolds, wanting someone to feel that about me at a very young age. And then Terence Davies, by golly, uses that song in this film, and it about gutted me. But I also showed this to my husband recently as well, and we actually really bonded over it together, and it meant a lot to me. It's a very beautiful film. It almost like deals with montages in a way. There's not really a strong narrative, but it just you vibe with it in a very bittersweet way. So I do recommend checking this one out. Speaking of films, I also showed my husband recently, but this one he adored. Spine number 716, Jacques Demy's The Umbrellas of Cherbourg, his all singing, no dancing, bittersweet romance tragedy. Okay, I've heard it described as a tragedy. It's not technically a tragedy in my eyes, but what a gorgeous film this is. I bought the 4K version because the colors of it are glorious. Catherine Deneuve is stunning to look at. It's just the pinks, the greens. It's a very pastel, very lovely. And I swear that I Will Wait for You theme will get stuck in your head. That la da da la 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 da da. I did not warm up properly. Shout out to my voice teacher, Elizabeth. I'm very sorry for that. But yes, this is a gorgeous film. I loved sharing it with my husband, and I do think a lot of you should check it out. It's a great accessible film if you want to show someone a foreign film, but they probably should like musicals because otherwise they're going to struggle with it immensely because it's all sung through. Think of it as Les Mis that way, only better. Next up, spine number 724, Bob Fosse's All That Jazz. Okay, it has nothing to really do with Chicago, but All That Jazz is fascinating because you have Roy Scheider, who's most known for Jaws, a very tough guy, but he is phenomenal in this because he plays essentially a counterpart of Fosse himself. And as a character study, this film is so fascinating because Fosse essentially attacks himself because his counterpart Joe Gideon, which is Scheider, is directing a Broadway show by day and editing a film by night. Which during the '70s, Fosse was getting very involved in film. He won Best Director for Cabaret. He made Lenny. He made this, and they were very well received. While also like directing shows like Chicago on Broadway, winning Tonys for Pippin. But all that jazz is just such an interesting film in that it is such a great character study. And it's also the true moment for people where, like, at the time, Jessica Lange was seen as a joke because she had been in the remake of King Kong. But she took notice of her reviews, went to acting school, and came back in this film with such a screen presence that you knew that she was going places. And next up, we have at spine number 725, just one notch up, the debut of that madman David Lynch, may he rest in peace, Eraserhead. I also showed this to my husband recently because he's had a history with Lynch, believe it or not. And because he has a friend who's also a fellow film bro like me. And we, Eraserhead is just, I really admire this one because it is so bizarre, but just the atmosphere of it, it really pulls you in. It's not overly long, like it's just under an hour and a half long. And it's just Lynch when Lynch is trying to be like weird for the sake of being weird, it can be frustrating. But there just feels like there's such like a deep meaning with this one, especially because it connects so closely to his time in Philadelphia, being a young father, living with his wife where their marriage struggled. This was actually the film that I revisited the day that Lynch passed away. It just felt very fitting to watch in that context. I do love Eraserhead very much. Next up, spine number 738, Sidney Pollack's Tootsie. You could argue Tootsie hasn't aged very well in some ways, and also Dustin Hoffman's a problematic figure, but we won't go into that right now because that'll take forever. But Dustin Hoffman plays a struggling actor. He's known for being very difficult, but he ends up donning drag to get a job on a soap opera. And as a kid, I had a very weird fascination with soap operas, so that element really appealed to me. But Tootsie is a very great film. I think everyone should see it. It's pretty accessible, I would say. And now we're back into the world of Lynch, spine number 779, Mulholland Drive. As most of you probably know, this did begin as a television pilot for ABC. The fact that Lynch even felt like he needed to go back to ABC to film a television pilot, considering the meddling they did with Twin Peaks, does I find that insane because I can't even imagine this show being on television. Naomi Watts, one of the best performances ever. It's a shame she was snubbed for an Oscar nomination. Next up at Spine 800, we have Mike Nichols' The Graduate, his sophomore film after Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf, which is a film that I also love, but that's not on the Criterion. The Graduate was a film I saw as a teenager, very early in my film going days, and it did have an effect on me, even though I was not a graduate yet. You do kind of relate with it, the sense of like, who am I, like Benjamin does coming out of college, and the fact that he's getting seduced by the old woman next door that he's known since he was a kid, but then falls in love with her daughter. What a twist. But next up, we are back to the world of Edward Yang. But if you thought 3 hours was long, I give you his 4 hour epic opus, Spy number 804, A Brighter Summer Day. This is his masterpiece, in my opinion. I just feel like it's just been described by some as a coming of age film. That's really simplifying it if you know what happens at the end. But it's about a kid who gets involved with the wrong side of the tracks, but he also falls in love with this girl who is not willing to be put into a box. Like, she is very much wanting to beat her own drum, and he cannot take it. And that's a very simple way of putting it, but this is a very lovely film. I think it's just, there are certain films where, like, you look at it and it's like, oh my God, that's 4 hours long. And I'm not saying that it flies by necessarily. It's well worth the watch. I love this film. Next up, we have Spine number 821 by one of my favorite English language filmmakers, Stanley Kubrick's Dr. Strangelove, or How I Learned to Stop Worrying and Love the Bomb. Kubrick was great in that, well, he was also a psycho madman, but he was a genius. And what I loved about him was that he never really tackled the same genre twice in a lot of ways. I mean, he had a couple of war films like Paths of Glory and Full Metal Jacket, but Doctor Strangelove was his dabbling in dark satire because the topic of this film is essentially nuclear Armageddon during the Cold War. But it's very funny. It's a great film. I also love how he manipulated the great George C. Scott, because George C. Scott was like, I don't want to do my lines like that. And Kubrick was like, oh, let's do these like very crazy like practice takes where you just loosen up and get all crazy. And then he had his cinematographer film those takes, and frankly, that was pure gold. Also, Peter Sellers should have won the Oscar for this. Masterful work, playing three characters no less. So next up, we have at Spine number 838, the ultimate example of you can't judge a film by its cover, to change that phrase, Guillermo del Toro's Pan's Labyrinth. I will admit, I am guilty of being someone who has never really been big into fantasy films. And when I went to go see this film, which came out between my junior and senior year of high school, I was like, it's getting a lot of great reviews. I guess I should go see it because I did try to go see a lot of things at that time. But I was not expecting to be that into it. And I kid you not, by the end of this film, I was profusely sobbing. And I don't cry at films that often, honestly. Pan's Labyrinth is a stunning piece of work, and I still think this is Del Toro's masterpiece. I don't think that he's going to top it, honestly. But speaking of masterpieces, we are going to dive back into the world of Polish filmmaker Krzysztof Kieslowski. Prior to making the Three Colors trilogy, the year of my birth, 1988, just to out my age right there, he made a mini-series for Polish television that was inspired by the themes of the Ten Commandments, which became Decalogue. And this is a truly stunning piece of work. I rewatched some of them recently. I didn't get to watch all of them yet, but the first episode literally deals with children drowning in a freezing lake. Talk about starting lighthearted. It's phenomenal. I love Decalogue. And now we have another one of the trilogies. So I actually just showed the first one to my husband Jesse last night, and he had some interesting thoughts. He wasn't sure what he thought about Ethan Hawke's character in it. But we have spine number 856, the Before trilogy: Sunrise, Sunset, and Midnight. I do love these, honestly. I think both Before Sunrise and Sunset are the better of the three. Sunset probably being my favorite because Sunset's only like an hour and 20 minutes long. It's compact, it gets in, and it does the job. I mean, Midnight is also very good. But like I gave it 4.5 stars, whereas I gave the other two 5 stars. But what a wonderful series of films. Two people talking. It's captivating. All of them are captivating. And I kid you not, as a bisexual, Julie Delpy and Ethan Hawke in these films, it's like I don't know where to look. They're both so enchanting. Before the Before trilogy, bisexuals unite. Yeah, just forgive me. Okay. Anyways, next up, spine number 894, Michael Haneke's The Piano Teacher, starring the truly phenomenal Isabelle Huppert, a woman who is absolutely bold in her choices. And in this film, she plays a piano teacher who really just wants to be, like, not mutilated. She just wants to be treated with roughly in bed. And she seduces one of her young students. And it's quite dark. If you're familiar with the work of Michael Haneke, you probably can understand the kind of energy you're going to get from this film because it's not an easy watch. But I do love most of his work, so, and she's stunning in it because she's fucking Isabelle Huppert. Next up, yet another film I showed Jesse recently, spine number 904, Alexander Payne's Election. Reese Witherspoon's best performance. I think of her every time. Like, whenever I do think of her, this is what I think of. She's amazing in this as Tracy Flick. I love how 90s it is. It feels like a last gasp of 90s cinema because it did come out in 99. Also, shout out to my movie friend Dan because he's from Omaha, and this film does mean a lot to him, as does the work of Alexander Payne. So, Election, very nice. So, next up, we have a film that I would say is one that maybe all of you have seen. It's very indelible. It was directed by the late, great Rob Reiner. Rest in peace to him and his wife, Michelle. But we have spine number 948, The Princess Bride. I mean, what is there to say? This has to be one of the most beloved films of all time. Like, just the romance, the comedy, the action adventure. It's like swashbuckling. Like at the beginning of the film, when Peter Falk is reading the book to his grandson, played by Fred Savage, and Fred Savage is like, "Is this a kissing book?" Like, you think that at first, but like this film is just so much more than that. It has a little bit of something for everyone. Like, there's a reason this film has endured for so long. Next up, we have Blue Velvet, David Lynch's, well, I was going to say magnum opus, but he has a couple of those. Spine number 977. Some of you know this story already, but if you're new to this channel and haven't heard it from me before, I watched this movie with my nan, my grandmother, who sadly did pass away in 2024. But my mom didn't know what this movie was about. I kind of knew what it was about. I was already watching Twin Peaks as a 13-year-old. And we rented this movie on a summer day. I took it over to my nan's house. We watched it there. She was not happy about it. She literally got up to the scene where Kyle MacLachlan was in the closet watching Dennis Hopper come in. If you've seen the film, you probably are already cringing. So she ended up leaving the room, thankfully, before like the worst stuff happened. But she was literally like,
"What kind of movie is this? Like, this is just so awful."
She got out of her lazy chair. It's like,
I'm just gonna go play solitaire in the other room. Ow!
But yeah, thankfully she did that because I don't really know what I would have done with myself. It caused a bit of lore in my family, we'll put it that way. Next up, another film I've shown Jesse. I am going to show Jesse Blue Velvet soon. But next up, we have spine number 1025, the magnum opus of Wes Anderson, The Grand Budapest Hotel. It is his best. It's beautiful to look at. Ralph Fiennes is an amazing lead. There's a lot of emotional excitement. It's a great film. Like, what else is there to say? Next up, a very beautiful film. When I saw this film, it literally was one of those where I was like, this is a painting come to life. So we have Spy Number 1034, Celine Sciamma's Portrait of a Lady on Fire. God, I mean, you have Naomi Milon and Adele Haenel in this. Adele Haenel in particular is stunning because if you've seen this film, you probably know where I'm going, but I don't want to say much if you haven't. But the ending, where she just every possible emotion is on Adele Haenel's face. It's one of the most insanely spectacular things I've ever seen on a film. An acting masterclass. Everything about this film is just should just be like this film is its own museum in a lot of ways. Like it's just amazing. But if I could say there's a film that brought me here today in some ways, because I was very into film but dropped out for several years, but it was the release of Spine Number 1054 that really got me back into film again, and that is Bong Joon Ho's Parasite. I mean, I showed it to Jesse, he loved it. Basically, everyone that I've talked about this film has loved it. It's structured so well. It holds up to repeated viewings. I've seen it 4 times now, and it's just as amazing every single time. I mean, I just Parasite. It's just I would worship this film, but then I would probably end up in Decalogue as a Ten Commandments story. Next up, we have 1070, Secrets and Lies. This is actually another film that I relate to my nan, and it's about a black British optometrist. Her adopted mother passes away, and she decides that she's going to seek out her birth mother that she had never met before. Turns out her birth mother is the lily white Brenda Blethyn, a working class woman. And it's never explicitly said, but it is implied that it was likely that she gave up her Hortense for adoption because she was raped. But these two are so great in this. Brenda Blethyn is phenomenal. But then you have Marianne Jean Baptiste, a wonderful actress. She was just recently in Mike Leigh's Hard Truths, playing a very different type of character. But I do love this film. Mike Leigh is a great filmmaker, always very subtle, like tackling like the lower classes of Britain. And we all know Brits love their class system over there. But next up, we have Spy Number 1132, sorry, Joachim Trier's The Worst Person in the World, starring the exquisite Renata Reinsve, who should have been nominated for an Oscar for this. I did love that this film got an original screenplay nom, a little bit of a surprise. But this film feels like a millennial rally cry for like men or women, just like we just like it just it's hard to put into words. It also made me want to move to Oslo. It made Oslo look pretty. It kind of reminded me of like a Scandinavian Pittsburgh. And I do like Pittsburgh. I grew up outside of Pittsburgh, so don't knock it. It's actually not that bad. And if you hate it, I guess we can talk about that later. Anyway, so worst person in the world. Renata Rines was amazing. Um, some of you might be familiar with the film Sentimental Value that just came out. Was nominated for several Oscars. That's also by the same guy. Also, Renata Rines was in that. But I do prefer this film to Sentimental Value. So we only have 5 more films left, plus that big collection. So we're getting there. Next up, Spy Number 1136. We have Ryosuke Yamaguchi's Drive My Car, another great film that delves into grief. He is a director. He is directing a production of Uncle Vanya, and it's after his wife, who is a big muse to him, has passed away. This is really selling it very short, but I mean, I can't be here for too long. This video will be going on forever. But I do love Drive My Car. It did come out in 2021. It actually got a Best Picture nomination, and it should have won because the rest of the films it was nominated against were pure crap. I mean, I liked Dune, but like Nightmare Alley, Licorice Pizza, Belfast, Belfast, King Richard, like, but then okay, and then Coda won. Coda. I mean, it was a sweet film. It was a sweet film, but I could predict every single little plot point. But like, Drive My Car. I sound pretentious right now, but Drive My Car. This film is just so beautiful, and I don't know why I'm doing this, but just okay. Let's move on. Next up, we have a film that came out during COVID and did get got a Best Picture nomination, won a couple of tech Oscars. Spine number 1151. We have Darius Marder's Sound of Metal with with an amazing performance by Riz Ahmed. He would have been a worthy winner, but this was also the year that Anthony Hopkins won for The Father, which he is phenomenal in that. He made me cry. That's another rare film that made me cry, just for reference. But Sound of Metal, Riz Ahmed's a drummer. He starts to lose his hearing, and of course, that's has a profound effect on him. It's a very beautiful film. I can't wait to watch this one again. I've only seen it twice. Next up, we have. I feel like more people are discovering this film. It's an underrated film in Scorsese's canon. Spine number 1185, After Hours. Such a great odyssey of 80s New York. I love anything that captures New York from that era. You also have the late, great Catherine O'Hara in a supporting role as a very bizarre Mr. Softy driver. And we also have the Mr. Softy trucks going to be coming out soon here in New York, and you're going to hear that lovely tune. Am I going to get copyrighted for that? I don't think so. But yes, After Hours is amazing. So, Jesse, my husband Jesse, on our very first date to the movies, the film I took him to was Spine number 1259, Anora. I thought Anora would be a good meeting point for us because Jesse's not really that versed or into film. He's very supportive and loves reading my stuff and will watch things I recommend. But I wanted to see Anora because it was the front runner for Best Picture, which it did eventually win. I mean, do I think it should have won Best Picture? Probably not. But I do really love the film. I do think it probably could have used a little bit of a trimming, even though Sean Baker won an Oscar for his editing, which still kind of surprises me. But it is a great film. I am supportive of Mikey Madison in this. When people be like, "Oh, it's like she's not that good," and that she didn't act. If you watch that girl in interviews and when she gives speeches, far cry from Honora. I mean, I think she gets a bad rap, but this movie does hold significance because it was the first movie that I took Jesse to see, and we did rewatch it together recently, so that was nice. So the last of the single movies we have is Spine number 1293, Tim Burton's Pee Wee's Big Adventure. The fact that this even got a Criterion release is I love it, and I showed this to Jesse too. I grew up loving Pee Wee. I'm of that age where I would watch Pee Wee's Playhouse when I was very young. I loved this. I even loved Big Top Pee Wee, which is the one that most people don't even know about, where he has a farm, a tornado comes in, and somehow it brings a circus to his farm. But Pee Wee's Big Adventure, I love this film. It just holds up. I actually will say Paul Rubens, may he rest in peace. He should have gotten an Oscar nomination for this. I'm not kidding. It's just a world uniquely its own, and not only that, it was Tim Burton's first feature film, and you can see little bits of his elements creeping in before he would become too much invested in his own crazy style. But we are going to end on this big collection I have over here, which I am grabbing just right off screen. My favorite filmmaker of all time happens to be Ingmar Bergman. And this is Ingmar Bergman Cinema. This is a big set that Criterion released back in, I want to say 2018. This collection cost me an arm and a leg. I could say that I sold my child, but I don't have a child to sell. But if I did have a child to sell, I could sell the child and be like, "I've abandoned my child! I've abandoned my boy!" There will be blood, but that's not in the collection. Anyway, Ingmar Bergman Cinema. Ingmar Bergman, I don't want to say too much about Bergman yet because I would like to dive into him more extensively over time. He is my favorite filmmaker, but this collection is amazing. If you're not familiar with this collection in particular, first of all, there is this book of essays, which I still need to read a lot of, but each film that's in the collection has an essay in this book. But the actual box set itself is set up like a film festival. So it's not in chronological order, but they're set up by theme. And there are a few of his films that I have not seen yet, and I did start watching some of them. And I don't want to, like I said, I don't want to say much because I want to talk more about it another time. But this is a amazing collection. So yes, I'm not going to say much more about Bergman, plus I've been going on for a while here, and now I'm struggling to put the booklet away. This bloopers in real time, and also on the back, Bergman. So, we've come to the end. So I just want to say to everyone, like I said at the beginning, I do appreciate you watching. I hope you're still with me. And I can't wait to keep going on this journey because I love talking about film. I want to find people to talk about it with. So, with that in mind, thank you. I hope I didn't seem too crazy, but I'm going to let you all go now. So, until next time.